Hey folks, I'm back with another video looking at the Kershaw Cryo. As some of you know, I'm not the biggest fan of assisted opening knives, so I thought I'd make a quick video and thought we could kind of take a look at it, see if we can remove the torsion bar from the Cryo and see how well it functions manually. If it still, locks up nicely, closes and opens freely. So what I have here is, two Torx drivers. You're going to need a T6 and a T8, and you've got two of the T6 screws within the body, and it actually has screw heads on both sides of the knife. So we'll see if we can get those off with just one side, and then we've got a T8 at the pivot, and that's just one screw on one side. So I'll start with the pivot. And forgive me if sometimes I'm out of focus or out of frame because I'm kind of sitting at a weird angle as I disassemble this. That one came out easy enough. There's one of the T6s. And there comes the other. Let's see, that should be all there is to it, and now that it's opened out, the spring shouldn't be too much in the way. Double check, make sure everything is looking good. We do have the stop pin at the back of the knife. And let me hold it up to the camera. I'm having to go backwards. You can see that little black stop pin at the base of the blade where it meets the handle. And I'm not sure how well fitted in there that is. It seems like it's coming apart. It seems like there's definitely some sort of grease or lubricant within the torsion bar area. Okay, so we have it open, and you can see here the two halves. You can see the channel that's recessed, that's been milled out of the one handle so that the torsion bar fits in there. It's got a pretty interesting design to it. And then it has the little plate that fills in after it. So that's pretty much it for taking the torsion bar out. Really not a whole heck of a lot you have to do. Just take off that one handle slab and take the spring off, and then that should be it. And just to give you a quick little view, let me see if I can wiggle this guy off of here and show you what it looks like beneath there, so you can see here the shape of the blade. We've got a washer there, and then there's one on the other side that I can see when it's closed. And there's the little ball bearing detent for the blade there. So let me put this back on. That just fits right back over there. We'll put the other handle slab on there. Sorry again if I'm going off frame. I'm kind of looking at what I'm doing and not kind of watching on the viewfinder. It just all kind of sandwiches back together. Everything seems to kind of wiggle and click back into place. And I'll put the body screws back in. Pretty simple construction. I've been using this for several days, every day as my EDC, and I've also been, I was thinking at first I might just baby it and use it for regular everyday tasks, but at the price point, why not use it for everything? So I actually took it to work for the last few days, and I've been using it for cut and lath and cutting through some cord and various materials, and been pretty aggressive with it. I'm not being shy with it, and I will say the coating has been holding up very well. This has gotten tossed around in my tool bags on my tool belt at work, and yeah, this is a very stout blade. Okay, so let me see. Let me adjust the tension there at the pivot just a bit. And it locks up fine without the torsion bar. It doesn't really, the detent doesn't really seem to pull it back into the handle as well as I had hoped for. Now I've got it loose enough to where it's kind of scraping. So that torsion bar is actually doing a fair bit of work pulling the blade back into the handle. You can kind of hear the blade scraping the the scale. Now it's not. And this was tightened down pretty good from the factory. I'm just trying to tweak it and find a sweet spot. And I have not yet found it. A tiny bit more. So there I can get it to flick out. It's staying in the handle well enough, to be honest. I don't, but I mean, just the slightest little bit of pressure on the back of the flipper pushes it open. So if you were to keep this in your pocket, it may decide to jump open on you. So I'm not overly impressed with removing the torsion bar and making it manual. You can, obviously, you can see right here that it still flicks. You lose that speed, but I imagine with several flicks and a little bit extra lubricant, you could get it to flip open pretty quickly. I'm trying to strike a balance between loosening it enough to where it flips open quickly, and also not scraping that handle scale. And it's, you can see right there, it's actually very, very close on the one side. So, you know, you little wrist flick, you can flick it open, and when it goes back into the handle, you know, it's staying pretty good. Let me see if I give it a good shake. It's probably, yeah, it's gonna fall out. I won't be leaving the knife like this. I just don't think it's worth removing the bar and not having that. I don't like that it doesn't fold back into the handle that well. So I'll go ahead and put that torsion bar back in there. But it can be done if you don't mind that the blade doesn't really hold that well in the handle. At least, you know, it doesn't, there's at no point in its travel as it goes back into the handle is anything kind of like grabbing the blade or pulling it into place. I mean, you can see right there that just a tiny bit of the edge of the blade is kind of sticking out past the handle, and there's nothing pulling it in. So it's really, it's just the tension at the pivot, the pressure at the pivot that's holding the blade in there, and that's it. But if you really wanted to do it, you could. Maybe if you weren't going to carry it in your pocket, or if you're just going to be really careful with how you carry it, you could remove that torsion bar and deal with it. But I'm going to go ahead and put it back in. So let's do that now. All of the pieces seem very well machined. You know, obviously I didn't have any trouble with the screws. I haven't stripped any of the screws or anything. They didn't catch or bind or anything like that. So that's been pretty cool so far. And all these little barrels, those little pillars that they use are nicely machined, and the coating on them is very even. So that's all been very well done. So for this bar, that settles into that little hole. Let me hold it up close for you to see. That little pin sits in that hole right there, and then this is going to rest in the channel, the groove, in the other handle scale there. So let me put those back together. Make sure that that little lanyard tube kind of wants to sit a certain way. So I'm going to hold that in place and see if I can get that back together like that. And first try, that went back together well. So that was easy enough. You know, if you need to disassemble it to clean it or to replace that torsion bar in the future, that looks like that's going to work out well. That should be pretty easy to do. Let's get that one screwed back in. You know, it's always nice to try stuff like this. I know some of you might have been curious as to whether or not the torsion bar can be removed. It can, and it looks like, you know, the knife will stay relatively well closed. It's definitely not locked in the closed position. There's no detent really holding it in place. At least there's none that's strong enough to do so. Let me tighten that down a little bit more. Let's see how that does. Okay, so we're back in business. Blade is pretty well centered. I might tighten it down just a fuzz more. I'm probably going to Loctite it a little bit later just to kind of seat everything so it doesn't jump around. But centers again well, flicks out like a champ. And on this model, considering what I've just learned by taking it apart, I'm going to go ahead and leave that torsion bar in and leave it in assisted opener. I don't absolutely hate assisted openers. If it was a legality issue, I'd probably look for a different knife. That's just me. If some of you folks out there that are already planning on buying one of these, or it's already in the mail, and I know a lot of you do have them on the way, take it apart yourself and see if it works any different for you. On this specific example, there's no detent holding that blade in place once it's closed. So just the slightest bump in your pocket on the flipper, and you might, puncture your clothes, or, even worse, yourself. So, stay safe as you're trying this stuff out, and use your best judgment when it comes to deciding if that's going to work out for you or not. Or if you have a completely different experience with yours, leave a comment or let me know. I'd be interested to hear if anyone else has a stronger detent when the blade is folded in, if there's anything that keeps theirs locked in the closed position any better than mine. But there you have it. That's the one that Kershaw sent me. Really excellent knife for the price. It's really shocking. I think right up there with the Spyderco Tenacious. It's just an amazing value, and just the use that I've gotten out of it over the last several days to a week is really impressed me, and it shows me that just Kershaw knows exactly what they're doing when it comes to making an efficient quality tool at a very inexpensive price that just about anybody can afford. Very cool design, and mine's gonna stay assisted for the time being. Thanks very much for joining me, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.